Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's great to be here this morning. And yes, I was a member of the Philadelphia Area Science of Mind Center associated with the Centers for Spiritual Living for several years. And I did get my practitionership from the Global Truth Center in Los Angeles, but long distance. I didn't go there but a couple of times. But I studied with a guy named James Mellon, who is just the guy that I wanted to learn from. And our lives came together. So I just want to start out with a fact that I don't even know if they're facts, but I read recently that there are somewhere between 10,000 and 12,000 different religions in the world. And this same article claims that in this country we have over 1,200. Now it depends on how you differentiate what's a religion or a sect. And I don't want to get into the details about that, but the main point is there's a lot of ways human beings try to connect with spirit. And I started out because I was born into a Catholic family as a Catholic, and I evolved through many years to come to Science of Mind. In Science of Mind, New Thought, all the different words that we can use for it. The reason why I stay here is it makes sense to me. And I was told that it would make sense and that it was demonstratable. So today my talk is, I titled it when I wrote it, and I originally wrote this for a different project that I'm working on, and I realized it would probably make a good talk. But the title is My First Demonstration, or How the Apostles Saved My Tush on a Fishing Boat. I cleaned up for the word tush. And as I realized as I went along with the writing of this, both of those titles are incorrect for different reasons. But I'll start out with the story. Now, I'm a sober person. I'm sober at this point over 23 years. Before I reached that, I was very active in the other style of life. And I actually had a lot of fun doing it. I was also active in ocean fishing. I'd go deep sea fishing a lot. I used to go deep sea fishing with this guy named Ricky. And he was a little squirrely looking dude. Probably looked like he came from Appalachia more than Devon, Pennsylvania, but that's where I met him. And he and I would fish on the same boat most of the time. And we would have a pattern where we would go load the truck up with all our stuff, and we would go to the bar and drink until a certain point. We'd drive down to the boat. We would park in the parking lot of the boat, and we would sleep for whatever time we had left. The mates would come out early, wake us up, and we would help them set up, and we would get the prime spot. And we were in that particular boat. So one night we did this, and we got a little bit too involved with the drinking and partying part before the going to the boat part, and we stayed out way too late. And all of a sudden we realized, oh my gosh, we got to go because we're going to miss the boat. Now, to give you an idea, the boat leaves at 8 in the morning. And it was only like a 2-hour drive to the boat. So we drive down there, we get there just in time, but we wind up on the bow of the boat. Not the best place to be, on the bow of the boat when you're and it's very crowded. And we start out, and my friend looks at me and he says, "You don't look so good." And in fact, I was feeling a little queasy. Now, I had observed over the years of fishing on these boats that when anybody got sick, there was a moment where I could see them think, or they would say the thought or the phrase, "Oh no, I'm going to be sick." Now, sometimes they wouldn't say it that directly. They'd say something like, "You're supposed to look at the horizon, right? Is it better if I eat bread?" But you can tell they're thinking, "Oh no, I'm going to be sick." They're feeling queasy. Now, I've been out drinking all night, and I think I ate one of those hot dogs and little silver things and probably a couple of purple eggs.
Oh, God.
Really, and God knows what I was drinking and other things that I was consuming. So I was primed for not feeling well on the fishing boat. But I observed that thing before, and I said to myself, there is no way I'm letting that thought cross my mind. Now, I did not know anything about Science of Mind, or that you could do that. I just knew this was going to be an 18-hour fishing trip, and I was not going to spend the next 18 hours being sick. But that thought's right there. It's like, you ever see those movies or TV shows where like they have words that appear in the screen like huge, that the person's thinking, you know, this big sign of something? That's what that phrase was, sitting right there. And my friend says again, man, you really don't look good. And I said, I'm fine. Now on fishing boats there are a few different characters that tend to be there all the time. There's like the old guy that's been fishing for a million years, who's maybe a little crusty and always catches more fish than everybody else, even though it doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. And there's young guys that look like they're dressed for running rather than fishing. And there's this guy, I don't know where they come from, but there's a guy who likes it when people get sick. I don't know what's up with this guy, some kind of puke porn or something. But these people exist, and they're very happy about it. So when he hears this guy who happened to be on the bow, just my luck, with me, he hears my friend say, you don't look so good. He starts enthusiastically announcing to the rest of the people within earshot, oh, we got one, you know. Oh, he's going to be a chummer. Again, I don't understand, because it's not a good thing when somebody does that, and it usually sets off other people if you're on a boat like that. I don't know why that's pleasant to somebody, but he was very enthusiastic about this turn of events. So I tried to explain to him politely that it would be good if he just minded his own business and left me alone, and we're starting out the journey. Now, as we're going, I'm feeling worse and worse, and my friend is observing this. He's like, you really look green, Dan. You're like turning green. And I said, all right, you can shut up now. I'm fine. But that conversation set off the other guy, and he starts chirping again. And I'm telling him, okay, enough, I'm fine. Now, I wasn't feeling fine. I was feeling far from fine. And that phrase is standing on the boat right next to me in big letters. I think the letters were becoming gilded or something. It was getting more and more present. I literally had to go to this other guy and like, you know how you whisper yell at somebody? You know, really close. And I said to him, if you don't shut up, I'm going to throw you in the ocean. You'll die. I'll go to prison for the rest of my life. I'm willing to make that exchange. He did finally shut up. And then my friend, again, through concern, I'm sure, man, your whole face is like green, you know? I said, enough, I'm fine, would you please knock it off? So now we're setting off for a 4-hour boat ride. I put my hood over my head. I sat on the bench. And what came to me was a gift, inspiration. Everybody here familiar with the musical Jesus Christ Superstar? Yeah. So there's a point in there, and this is where the second part of my title is actually incorrect. In my mind and in my memory, I had it as the apostles singing a line at the end of a number, but it really was a crowd, and Mary Magdalene actually was singing the main title of this piece. So once again, men got credit where women really did the thing, so sorry about that one. But what came into my head was the musical line, everything's all right, yes, everything's fine. Remember that?
Yes.
And she sings it, try not to get worried, try not to turn on to things that upset you, right? That came into my head. And I could get a hold of that phrase, everything's all right, yes, everything's fine. And I did it like a round. You know, remember row, row, row your boat? You would sing it and then somebody else would pick up before you finished the last word. And I was doing that in my head, so as one phrase, fine, would finish, everything's all right would start back up over and over again. Everything's all right, yes, everything's fine. I would not think another thought. I did that in my head for the next 3.5 to 4 hours as the boat rode out. And when we got to the place, we're fishing on top of a wrecked ship. So the boat has to circle around until it finds the exact wrecked ship. Not a great thing for somebody who's not feeling well. And then they locate it, and then they have to go off to the left and drop an anchor and back up over it. And all these actions are the worst. And you're standing there, you got smelly bait. And my friend goes, dude. Yeah, just ain't that way, would you please? And I said, would you stop? I'm fine. So we did finally get anchored. I dropped down. I caught the first fish, big sea bass. I bring this up and I'm like, what do you think? He looks at me and goes, Jesus, you look perfectly normal. I said, I've been telling you for 4 hours I'm fine. Now give me a beer and a sandwich and shut the bleep up. I was fine. I drank beer and I ate sandwiches and I fished for the next 10 or 12 hours. I never had another moment of seasickness. So, I was just a happy drunk who avoided a miserable day at that time. But what it tells me now, and what I know, looking back, is science of mind works whether you know it or not. Which is why the first part of my title is incorrect. My first demonstration, as Jane's reading told us, we're always demonstrating, or not, but we're always demonstrating something, whether we're doing it consciously or not. But that was the first time that I chose something other than what it seemed to be my unescapable experience. I decided, and that's a key thing, I decided, I'm not getting sick. And I didn't even decide it that way because that was in the negative. I decided I wasn't letting that statement that was standing right next to me into my head. And I didn't even know you could do that. And then I got an inspiration of that little piece of music. And that choice to grab a hold of that lifeline to a better thought. Everything's all right, yes, everything's fine, when it certainly wasn't at the time. And then dedicated my mind to only that thought for the next almost 4 hours. And then still didn't feel great. Wasn't like I finished that thought and went, okay, now we're good. But I still did demonstrate shortly after that. I went through the worst of it with all the boat going around in circles and all that stuff. So that demonstration didn't hit me as a demonstration until years later when I started to study this stuff. Now, why don't I do that all the time? I don't know. I can't really tell you why I don't dedicate my mind to a simple thought of what I want for that prolonged amount of time. But I'll tell you one thing. The training in science of mind has helped me be better at being consciously of choice. When I signed up to be a science of mind practitioner, it was a 2-year program. And my teacher, James Mellon, the first thing he had asked us to do was to write a thought paper. I love that he called them thought papers. Why do you want to be a practitioner? And when I sat down to write that, I realized I don't want to be a practitioner. I had no attachment to being a practitioner, to being the person holding consciousness at a center, to having the moments after, to being a professional and having people come pay me to hold consciousness for them. I didn't have any attachment to all that. And I didn't even know why I signed up initially, but what I realized is what I wanted was to embody this consciousness, this thing that I believed about the fact that demonstration happens because that's the way the universe works. I mean, I like one of the things I like about science of mind is it's impartial. I don't have to earn the love of my God. I don't have to do certain 10 things right or wrong. I don't have to do anything right or wrong. It's my choice. But the fact that I signed up for this line of teaching because I saw that man doing it in the way that I wanted to embody. And I wanted to do it more often. I wanted to be better at choosing my consciousness so I can choose my reality. And I thought, well, geez, I'm going to write this paper and I'll probably be done. The guy would go like, well, if you don't want to be one. And of course he didn't say that. He said, that's good reason. So that demonstration happened before I even knew that demonstrations could happen. I just want to quote him at something to end up with. And this is something that, and I will tell you that when I wrote this story down, and I've told this story for years in different ways, depending where I was at the time. But when I wrote this down for this other project, I can tell you that I sing that line in my head an awful lot. I mean, I can grab a hold of that in an instant. It's musical, it's easy, I've practiced it a lot. And it's non-specific. I think our speaker last week when I was here talked about if you get too specific, sometimes you can waylay your own benefit. You can waylay your own ability to create, because it doesn't always happen in the exact way you were thinking if you make it too limited or too specific. But everything's all right, everything's fine. Okay, that goes anywhere. That's an all-purpose janitor and a drum, like spiritual thought. Right? You can pull that out at any time. But here's the thing that James imparted to us at one point, and I wrote this, actually typed it up and I put it on the wall next to my computer. He said, you want to keep this in mind. Ask yourself, say to yourself, I'm thinking. What am I thinking? Do I want to live the results of that thought?
Wow.
Talk about calling yourself out.
Wow.
So, everything's all right. Everything's fine. And thanks for having me today.
Thank you.